Hello, Internet, and welcome to this week's edition of 1 Minute Answers from 1 Minute Economics, the show where I answer your economics related questions in a minute or so each. And as usual, before getting started with the questions for this week, which are related to geopolitics, I want to pick the topic for next week, and the topic for next week is going to be China. So, for example, maybe you're impressed by China's economic growth and have a question about that, or then again, maybe on the contrary, you're worried that bubbles might pop in China, or you have concerns about China's ghost cities or whatever else related to that. Again, whatever may be on your mind, ask me a question by writing a comment below, and I will do my best to answer next week. For today's first question, MW would like to know what the deal with the Rothschilds is. Now, let me just say that this is definitely the type of question that tends to open all sorts of cans of worms because there are quite a few stories circulating about this particular family, and just like with most conspiracies, there is some accuracy, there is some historic truth behind the various accusations that are thrown in their direction, in that, okay, the story of the Rothschilds family is a classic rags to riches story, but, a rags to riches story on steroids, if you will. In that these people were at one point in the past, again, not in the present, but at one point in the past, they were the richest family in the world, and even more so, as strange as it may sound, they kind of had the role that the International Monetary Fund has today. So they were so wealthy back then that they ended up frequently playing the role of lender of last resort. So there is definitely accuracy behind statements such as the Rothschilds control the world, but then along came situations like World War I and World War II, in which, simply put, they just didn't have enough money to, be providential, and as such, institutions like the International Monetary Fund ended up being created, and even more so, okay, the family in question is still rich today, but if you compare them to the trillions of dollars in assets held by Deutsche Bank or various players on Wall Street and so on, you're going to conclude that, yeah, you could have said that the Rothschilds are controlling the world and done so with reasonable arguments 100 years ago, but nowadays, I'm sorry, but that is just no longer valid. So, yeah, they were insanely rich, they were influential enough for us to say that at a certain point, accusations such as, hey, you guys control the world, might have had some merit, but in 2017 and beyond, I think it's a mistake to keep focusing on this particular angle. Yes, they're rich, but they're definitely not nearly rich or influential enough to control the world. For today's second and final question, Mr. Map mentioned that since the United States is the largest economy in the world, it naturally needs to protect its shipping routes, and he would like to know how this translates into geopolitics. And of course, it definitely does, in that, okay, when you have a certain conflict between country A and country B, you have two dimensions. One, what's being sold to the public, as in, this is a conflict in which we're the good guys, we're doing it for the benefit of the many, we're doing it for all the noble reasons you can imagine and whatever. That's one dimension. The other dimension is the much more pragmatic economic one. And unfortunately, lots and lots and lots of conflicts are being fought because one country or another has a certain resource, or to refer to your question, because one country or another is of geostrategic importance. And let's just think about Syria and the huge role it plays when it comes to the international transportation of oil. So to say that conflicts in Syria have absolutely nothing to do with this dimension would be, in my opinion, hypocritical. Or to give you an example that's more naval in nature, all we have to do is take a look at the South China Sea. And let's be honest, over $5 trillion each year in trade circulates through there. So needless to say, this is something of great geostrategic significance, and according to quite a few analysts, a war might even start in that region based to a large degree on these reasons. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that the answer to your question is quite morbid in that, one, are countries such as the United States likely to engage in conflicts for reasons that have to do with things like shipping routes? Unfortunately, yes. Number two, are innocent people likely to die because of this? Once again, unfortunately, yes. And finally, will this ever change? I'm going to answer this question with an honest I don't know, but I definitely hope so. That's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in to yet another edition of 1 Minute Answers from 1 Minute Economics. And remember, the topic for next week is China. So if you want to ask me something about the good, such as China's impressive economic growth, or the bad, such as China's ghost cities, simply write your question below and I will do my best to answer next week. As always, please be active in the community, comment, engage in debates, and subscribe to 1 Minute Economics if you haven't by now. Also, if possible, please develop the habit of telling your friends and contacts about this channel, because even something like a quick post on Facebook or a tweet or a like on LinkedIn or anything else of that nature helps tremendously. And of course, those who can afford to and want to support the channel financially as well can do so by buying my Wealth Management 2.0 book, by donating through PayPal, Patreon, or Bitcoin, and through other methods as well, such as subscribing to my newsletter. And for more info, you can check out 1minuteeconomics.com. Thanks a lot, guys, and have an awesome weekend.